So this is my gifted internship capstone presentation. Here we go. Hi, so my name's Francesca R. I think all of you know me, but I'm going to introduce myself. During my time in internship, I interned for the Office of Park Cannon, who is the Georgia District 58 representative, which is a district that is right here in Atlanta. So it was kind of a Capitol adjacent job. So in terms of professional correspondence and what I did, so my official job title in this internship was the Office of District 58's social media intern. And as the biggest part of my job, I handled the Facebook platform and I created content for that. My supervisor would kind of give me things to say. COVID played an important role. There was a lot of COVID information that I had to send out. There was some educational stuff. There was like Representative Cannon is doing this thing. This is attending this event in this place, and we're going to be here. So just so FYI. Additionally, I did a lot of smaller things. I responded to emails. I transcribed some interviews. And the other part of my job, there's just general tasks that they needed someone on. And then the other part of my job that I think I enjoyed the most was being present for many legislative meetings. I popped in on quite a few. I think the main one that I got to see continued that I'm going to talk about in this presentation was the Women's Care Act. So I will refer to that later. But I kind of went to meetings across the board that I enjoyed. My learning goals at the beginning of the internship were to witness and participate in the process of legislating, which I feel like I did throughout the thing with all the meetings and seeing Representative Cannon in action, as well as managing the official social media effectively. By effectively, I kind of defined it as how my boss, Janae Brooks, wanted me to do it. And I think I did everything to her satisfaction. So I would call that an effective job. This is the official Facebook. That was my main social media platform that I had to manage. It took a little bit of figuring out, but I kind of got over the growing pains, and pretty soon I got adept to it, I feel. This is a series of educational posts that required some research that my boss asked me to post and to put on the Facebook for people to kind of see what Park Cannon had done, Representative Cannon had done in the past and as your legislator. So these are just 5. There were quite a few more, but these are the Quality Basic Education Act, bills to funnel lottery funds into helping homeless veterans, insurance acts to protect survivors of sexual assault, a couple different homeless bills to help homeless people, just previous legislation she had done that I thought was important that other people see. And I thought so I had to figure out how to format it and did some research on the legislation itself. The Women's Care Act is what I referred to before. That was the main piece of legislation that I went to many meetings on that I really, really, really enjoyed seeing in action. So CARE stands for Childbirth Alternatives, Resources, and Education. And it's a bill for incarcerated people trying to get people who are about to give birth out of prison into their own facilities and trying to make their lives safer as they give birth, both for the parent and for the baby. It's still in the works as kind of a legislation building on a previous act, which is called the Shackle Bill, which was we should not have pregnant people handcuffed while they give birth. This is kind of the further step saying that we should get pregnant people out of prison entirely. So it's still in the works, so I can't really describe it has a lot of specificities, but I can't really describe many of them. However, the discussion during the formulating of it really, really gave me perspective on what it means to be a legislator and what it means to how to formulate a bill, because there were so many different people throughout the bill from a lot of different perspectives. There were legislators, there were lawmakers, there were lawyers with the ACLU, there were a couple doctors from a medical perspective. There were lobbyists for women in prison, and it was just so many perspectives that I could see kind of coming together that gave me a new perspective on how to build something that I had really not had before. So I really, really enjoyed that part of it, and I might reference this later. This is my business card. I think it was easier for me to make because a lot of my job deals with formatting social media. And so I kind of enjoyed making that and formatting it into what I thought was a professional capital-esque design. Workplace culture and ethics, Unit 3. So, of course, COVID was a limiting factor in this internship. I still really, really enjoyed it. I think my supervisor, Jamae Rooks, was my main supervisor, and I really liked her. And Representative Cannon was also kind of functioned as my boss, telling me what to do. And they were super helpful. Initially, there were some growing pains. I didn't know how to use Facebook. I had to figure that out. But they really helped me kind of learn things, and I think that that's important in in understanding the workplace culture as a whole. It's very it fosters growth a lot, and I really, really like that about it. The legislative meetings were very, very collaborative for many different fields. That was probably my favorite part of interning. I think that seeing the collaboration happening, seeing the formulating of legislation, seeing everyone care so much about a common goal and then using different backgrounds to get towards that common goal really, really made me happy and was fascinating. And I was usually there to take notes, to brief Representative Cannon on it later. I didn't have that much, like if they asked for like general questions, I might ask something. I didn't have my own perspective to really give on it, but I still got really enjoyed being there and watching it happen. Interacting with constituents was a responsibility that the office handled that also kind of varied. I think constituents are everyone Representative Cannon represents. So it was really a variable in who we were interacting with. Atlanta and her district spans kind of a lot of Metro Atlanta. So it became like it was really kind of people skills were required to go out there and interact with everyone who wanted to talk to her, and I would take pictures, to interact with her via a bunch of different methods. So that was a responsibility that I also got to see the rest of the office in action doing, and that was really interesting to me as well. That is my attire. Again, COVID played a big role, but I think it's kind of important to see, like, I was the social media manager, so I wore some like more basic, comfortable clothing. However, at the same time, there were meetings where I needed to be like kind of formal, kind of in a suit, kind of in a very presentable business casual way. So I just wore like suits or blazer, basic business casual. Unit 4 is diversity. So this was the makeup of the office was one of also my favorite parts of interning. I think that as I've stated before in legislative meetings, everyone really has a different perspective, a different background to come to, that they all kind of impose on the thing that they're trying to build. So the Women's Care Act, I won't continue to beat around this bush more, but it was very formulative in me seeing how building legislation works. Another thing is that the Office of Park Cannon itself has taken steps to represent its constituency among its employees. So there's a lot of people from a lot of different backgrounds, ethnic backgrounds, racial backgrounds, sexual orientation. They just try to be as diverse as possible because Midtown and Metro Atlanta has a lot of different people in it, and it really deserves an office that echoes that. And then a wide age range is also kind of an important thing. So you don't get a bunch of perspectives from the same generation. I was their first high school intern. They have a bunch of interns in college. There's adults. Representative Cannon herself is pretty young, and when initially elected, she was one of the first people. She was one of the youngest people in the state senate, in the state legislature. So it made it kind of a unique experience for her, and I think she tries to echo that. And Unit 5 is networking. So here are some of my networking connections. These are all people that I really, really enjoyed working with. There are some representatives who obviously have a ton of connections at their disposal, and they have like kind of the power of offices, but they're also super good at their jobs. And it was very, very interesting, and I learned a lot from seeing them both going to work. I didn't intern for Representative Schofield, but I was there for her in legislative meetings, and I really admired the way that she conducted herself. Jamae Brooks was my boss. She's the legislative aide to Park Cannon, and I think she juggles a lot of things on a daily basis. So I really enjoyed watching her kind of her organization and how she helped Park Cannon and how she kind of conducted herself. Pamela Wynn, Carolyn Suffren, and Amy Ard are all people with the Women's Care Act. Pamela Wynn is the primary advocate of the bill that we're working on, and she's done this work in several other states as well, not just Georgia. So it really made it kind of she's kind of an expert in how to lobby for legislation that she really cares about. And I really, really enjoyed working with her and seeing her dedication to what she was trying to get what she was trying to get passed into law. Carolyn Suffren, she's an OBGYN who was again present in these meetings, but the reason why I included her was because it was really, really interesting to have a medical perspective included in a meeting where so many people were focused on government and legislation and how to get things political. So I really admired her perspective and I enjoyed that. And then Amy Ard was also in these meetings and I enjoyed hearing her perspective. She's with Motherhood Beyond Bars, which is another organization that works to do family planning and education and make parents in prison more able to take care of their kids. So all of these people really made it a better experience and I enjoyed working with all of them. And I think that is the presentation. Thank you for watching me.
Francesca, do we have any questions from the audience?
I have one question. I was wondering how your experience has impacted what you want to do as your career. Has it made you more passionate or has it made you like, oh, this is a lot more than I thought. Maybe I don't want to do this. Just like, what are you thinking now?
Yeah, so I don't have a specific career that I am definitely going to go into, but interacting with a bunch of people who are really, really passionate about using government to help other people really made it more of an attractive prospect. And I think far from discouraging me. There was a lot going on and it was kind of initially intimidating to handle, just to see how there's so many facets of the District 58 office that are moving at the same time and how it's important when people depend on it. So it's kind of intimidating. But I think that because the people care so much and are so well equipped to do their jobs, it really made me want to continue working for Representative Cannon and to see this as a potential field in my life. Thank you for asking that.
Francesca, how do you see yourself leveraging these contacts that you've made in the next 2 to 4 years?
Yeah, so I think that if I were to ever get into, I think I'm already taking part in I'm already participating in these meetings for the Women's Care Act. So if I ever if I ever wanted to continue doing this kind of work in criminal justice reform, working with anyone who's interested in not in reproductive justice, but in Motherhood Beyond Bars, these are really interesting organizations that I could definitely maybe work for, maybe get these connections to, maybe work with all of these connections more. I think that Representative Cannon has been an awesome working opportunity. And I hope that I live in Atlanta and I'm looking to go to college in the state. So I hope that I can spend more time working with her and then also maybe get her perspective on like advice for how to go into government if I were to stay in Atlanta. I think all of these people are very, very smart and I learned a lot from them. And so I hope they enjoy working with me as well. So I think that I could hopefully ask some of them for recommendations. But they are all very useful, but also interesting and wonderful people who I respect and who I hope think the same of me.
Quick question as well. So what was your most challenging aspect of this internship? What was the most challenging? I know you were interested in doing some writing and researching. So
yeah, I did do that. And I didn't find that challenging because I really enjoy it. I thought that the most challenging thing was the initial figuring out how to use Facebook was really it was funny, but it was also very frustrating because it's a platform I don't understand. And I had to do a lot of research, figure out how to troubleshoot, figure out how to like, I posted some things I posted it and then I didn't like it and then I had to take it down and like modify it. So it took a lot of figuring out. But I think that Janae especially was extremely helpful in telling me how to, in showing me how to work better with it, or work better with the platforms I was using, and be more efficient at just using the tools that the office gave me.
If there are no other questions, I would like to thank Francesca for her presentation.
I have a quick question.
Sure.
I was wondering what program you used to create those graphics because they were very well done.
Thank you. I used Canva. It's very, I made my own template. You get like Facebook post and then you superimpose colors on it and then you have the graphic and it's very easy to use. I would recommend it.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, anybody else? All right. Thank you, Francesca.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think it is time to move on to our next presentation. So Francesca, if you could stop your share and we'll turn the floor over to Zephy. Everyone, please make sure you submit Francesca's evaluation now, and so that we can give Zephy her full attention, or our full attention.
Hi, just tell me when you'd like me to start.
Okay. We'll give everybody just another minute or so to submit their evaluation using the form. Okay, Zephy, you have the floor.
Hi, my name is Zephy S, and I'm a student at Grady High School. I completed my internship with North American Properties. North American Properties is a privately held multi-regional real estate operating company. While at North American Properties, I was interned to Ms. Barbara Garrett. She is the Senior Vice President of Operations at North American Properties. While learning under her, I got to work closely with the real estate investment team to gain a deeper understanding of the finance industry through firsthand experiences. When I started my internship in November, I was asked to come up with a series of goals to help further my internship experience and make it the most meaningful possible. My first goal was to learn finance terms and abbreviations. Just like the average person today uses abbreviations when texting to conserve time, creating a texting language, the finance industry has a language of its own. For many people getting into the finance industry, a challenge can be not understanding this language, so learning it had to become first priority to me. To accomplish this, I would attend meetings and write down all of the terms and abbreviations that were unfamiliar to me. Then after these meetings, I would go home and look them up. Some of the most commonly used ones that I learned were ROI, meaning return on investment, RFP, request for proposal, PI, profitability index, GLA, gross leasable area, and TI, tenant improvement. Once I understood what these terms meant, the meetings became much more beneficial because I got to understand what was happening with the different projects and properties North American Properties was dealing with, rather than being stuck just trying to figure out what the words themselves meant. For my second goal, I wanted to understand how North American Properties chose where to invest. To accomplish this, Ms. Garrett set up a meeting for me with Mr. Bauer and Mr. Benatar. Mr. Bauer and Mr. Benatar explained to me the process of collecting information and then underwriting a deal. Underwriting means looking at how risky a loan or investment would be. North American Properties likes to take on value-added projects. This means they're willing to accept a little bit more risk for a greater return. The things they look at when determining the risk before underwriting are the timing for construction and leasing, the investment package, the construction costs, and the sales, operating, debt, and equity assumptions. On the right, I've included the example of underwriting that was used to explain this all to me. You can see estimated expenses, income, and costs, as well as the assumed amounts in financing and sales. All of this together helps North American Properties choose whether it's a project they want to take on or not. My third goal was to understand how to become a successful woman in finance. This was a very important goal to me as this is a career path I would like to pursue, and the finance industry is typically dominated by men. So to accomplish this, Miss Garrett set up a meeting with herself and Miss Devin Barnwell, two very successful women in finance. In this meeting, I was able to ask them questions and they gave me tips and input on how they got to where they were today. After the meeting, the three big takeaways were number one, be confident. Know that you are doing what you know how to do and you have worked hard to get where you are. The more confident you show in yourself, the less people will start to ask you questions and start doubting you. You'll gain more respect just by being more confident. The second tip was be really good at time management. Time management is important because the finance industry often requires long, grueling hours. These hours often discourage women from joining because they also want to have a family and think they cannot have it both. Miss Barnwell said, this is not true. She said, while you can have it all, you have to understand it might not all be at once. By this, she means you need to set aside separate time for your family and separate time for your work, whether it's in terms of years or hours. For example, say you start your career, you work 5 years, then you take off time to start a family. Once your children go to school, then you can go back to work. Or you could do it within a day. Say from 8 to 6:30, you go to work, 6:30 to 9, you spend time with your family, and then after 9, you put in a few more hours. You just have to find what works best for you. The third tip was to not let go of your core values. Many people feel they lose parts of themselves in order to climb greater challenges and achieve higher leadership positions. This is not true. What you have to do is find companies that values match your own. I was very fortunate I got to intern for North American Properties because they model my own values. One of their values is integrity, being honest and never being afraid to do the right thing for the right reason. This is an approach I try to go through life with. In addition to coming up with goals, we interns were asked to examine the workplace. North American Properties has a friendly, open, and professional workplace environment. As far as dress goes at North American Properties, they have a business casual dress attire. This means women often wear skirts and blouses or dresses, while men wear collared shirts and business pants for everyday activities. But when meeting with investors or clients, they'll often dress a little nicer. For etiquette at North American Properties, everyone is very respectful of one another and are open to collaboration. Collaboration is really important because North American Properties has lots of different real estate and mixed use developments all over the country. All of these pieces of real estate have tenants, and the workers at North American Properties have to be able to get along with these people in order to accomplish things. For rules at North American Properties shares many basic rules that all companies have, like an employee code of conduct, an equal opportunity policy, and a health and safety policy. This year, though, the health and safety policy look a little bit different because of the pandemic we're living through. As I mentioned, North American Properties has projects all over the country. So while the rules vary from property to property, trying to remain consistent with local government rules and CDC guidelines, there are some overarching ones, meaning mask wearing, social distancing, hosting outdoor events and outdoor dining, as well as hosting majority of meetings on Zoom. This allows for everyone to be safe while still accomplishing all of the work that needs to be done. As far as diversity goes, that is something I thought the finance industry lacked before I started my internship. North American Properties proved me wrong. North American Properties is very diverse when it comes to gender, skills, location, and personalities. As far as gender goes, 33% of the meetings I attended, 33% of the people were all women. This 33% may not sound like a lot, but it actually is for the finance industry. For skills, North American Property has skills all over the board when it comes to real estate. The skills they don't have, though, is actually what helps them decide where or where not to invest. For example, right now, North American Properties does not have someone who specializes in hotels, so they're currently not looking to invest in them. But if they were to get someone with that set of skills, there's nothing to stop them then. For locations, North American Properties is headquartered in Cincinnati, but has locations in Florida, Georgia, and Texas. A call I attend is for Newport on the Levee, a project located in Kentucky. If there was some issue with that property, then the Cincinnati office would be able to easily go over and check on it. But if there's a problem with the Texas property, no one from Cincinnati would want to fly to Texas, especially amidst the pandemic. So it's very fortunate that the Texas office is right there and can check on the property. This allows everyone to be safe and still make sure everything runs smoothly. For personalities, North American Properties is a mix of introverts and extroverts. But from the people I have spoken with, the favorite personalities to work with are the easygoing, outspoken, and personable ones. Those are the same types of people I like to work with and try to model myself after. For networking, this internship has made so many connections that will help in the future. Miss Garrett will always be a resource I'll have to ask questions to if I am ever struggling, and she's also offered to write me recommendations in the future. I'm very thankful for that. Along with Miss Garrett, Miss Barnwell will be someone I can always ask questions to when it comes to how to balance work and personal life. Mr. Bauer and Mr. Benatar are a resource I'll always have, especially when starting into the field and pursuing my studies, if I ever have questions regarding finance. Miss Forrester has made so many connections for me, and Miss Green, while currently the Director of People Operations, has had past experience with college admissions and has offered to help me with mine next year. Now I just thought I'd share a few internship highlights. On the left, you see pictures of the property I mentioned, Newport on the Levee. Newport on the Levee was acquired by North American Properties in 2018. And even though I didn't start my internship until 2020, I got to see it go from being constructed and renovated still to actually start hosting outdoor events. And that was a really neat thing to see. On the right is a property called Birkdale Village. North American Properties had not yet acquired this project when I started. So it was really cool to get to see how they chose it. Below that picture, you can see a graph that I actually got to make. In this graph, I was comparing household income for Birkdale Village renters versus a property that North American Properties had already had. This got used when presenting to the board on reasons they should acquire Birkdale Village. Thank you.
Thank you, Zephy. Does the group have any questions for Zephy?
Yeah, so I have a question. When your internship acquires a property, how long does it take for them to decide what to do with it?
So typically when they have a property presented to them, it's already been built and it's more renovating it, and they renovate them to resell them, and that turnaround takes roughly 3 years, but sometimes can take longer.
Okay, that's cool.
Zephy, your presentation was very thorough. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it a lot. I'm sitting here trying to think of something that I should ask you that you didn't talk about.
I had one quick question, Mr. Nichols, if that's okay.
That's
so Zephy, what skills did you were you able to cultivate that you feel would be most relevant in your future endeavors?
So I'd actually never had an internship or job before. So I got to learn lots of interviewing skills at the beginning of this when I first got to meet with Miss Barbara Garrett. I also got to have lots of one-on-one meetings within the company, and I was able to ask questions. Then after that, I was able to take some skills that I already had to make graphs. But some of the best things I think I learned were confidence and courage, because I was definitely a little bit nervous starting off my internship because I'd never done anything in finance. But throughout it, I realized that as long as you try and put in a lot of work, you'll be able to accomplish it. And that's just a mindset that I definitely didn't have, and now I've gained it. So I'm very appreciative of that.
Very good.
Zephy, I did think of one thing. Could you go back to the beginning of or towards the beginning of your presentation and talk to us about your business card?
Oh, yes. So for my business card, I created it just using an online business card maker. I have the North American Properties logo, and my title was just intern. North American Properties, especially their finance team, doesn't typically get a lot of interns. So I just had that overarching, and I worked with Miss Garrett and Mr. Bauer and Mr. Benatar most. And then just on the back, I have the address of the company and my email and their phone number.
All right, great. Thank you. Are there any other questions for Zephy? All right, if there are no more questions, we are going to move on to our next presentation in a moment. But before we do so, please make sure you fill out the rubric form for Zephy before we start our next presentation, which is Carolina. So Carolina, you can go ahead and get yourself set up and share your screen while everybody's filling out their evaluations. Just say and whatever is long out. Hey, I'll allow it. Okay, I think it is about time for Carolina to present. You can go ahead.
Hello and welcome. This is my capstone presentation on my internship at the Thesaurus Linguae Latini. Hi, I'm Carolina Fretwell. I'm currently interning at the Thesaurus Linguae Latini, or the TLL, and I'm developing educational material for high school use. Over on the right, you can see an example of one of the entries for the TLL. It's actually written on these little note cards that are kept in boxes, and the goal of the TLL, which is actually still in development, they're not finished with it yet, is to record every use of every Latin word in every Latin text that has ever been found. So it's a pretty ambitious endeavor, but the purpose is to identify differences between words. So say you're a researcher or you're translating a new text, you might use this dictionary to see, oh, what are the different meanings that this author could have been trying to imply by using this word? So it's a very complicated project. They're currently on the letter R, and they skipped in because it was too hard. So first, I want to talk about professional correspondence, essentially what I was doing during my internship. My learning goals that I set before I started the internship were to understand the conventions of the TLL. It's a very complex document. It's hard to read, so I really just needed to learn how to read it before I did anything else. Then I had to decide on the concepts that were relevant to high schoolers who were learning Latin, because like I said, many researchers use the TLL. Not everything in the dictionary is relevant to high schoolers. And then we created a series of assignments that presented those concepts in a manageable way. So first of all, this is a page of the TLL. I know I said it was written on note cards earlier, but at one point it was digitized and put into this form online. So it's sort of a digital dictionary that you can look through as well. This is a single page. You can see that it's very, very dense, and I popped out a couple of sections here. You can see that it's also entirely written in Latin. So first you just have to be able to read Latin, and that's hard in and of itself. You can also see there are a bunch of abbreviations in these little examples that I gave you. I had to know what all those abbreviations meant. So some of these are authors. The ones that are in all caps are generally authors. When it's in italics, that suggests that they don't have the entire translation, or it's a certain kind of text that is more or less useful. It can suggest a few different things, but generally italics means go check on our source for this. I also developed some relevant concepts for high schoolers once I could read the TLL. Me and my supervisor, Adam Gittner, we decided that dictionary fluency was important to understand. So there are different kinds of dictionaries that you can use in Latin. What I just showed you counts as a dictionary, but what also counts as a dictionary is the Oxford Latin Dictionary that you just open up and look in there and you see, oh, puella means girl. Now I know how to translate that word. So we wanted to teach people about the differences between dictionaries and when it was important to use one over the other. We also talked about complex word translations. I mentioned at the beginning that a researcher maybe translating a new Latin text could use the TLL to see differences in meanings and how an author might have intended something to mean a different thing depending on the context in which the word was used. That's something that a lot of Latin students, especially high school students, don't really stop to consider a lot of the time. They want one translation that effectively translates the word so that they can finish their assignment and move on with their lives. But there are a lot of interesting word translations that we thought were relevant for people to understand. And finally, we wanted to look at synonym comprehension. So just like in English, English has synonyms that still mean slightly different things. Latin has the same thing. We wanted people to know how to distinguish between those synonyms, where they could look if they needed to make those distinctions. So then we made some assignments that people could understand. This is an example of a deconstruction of a dictionary that me and my supervisor created. We wanted to show what kinds of information the dictionaries offered. This dictionary offers a lot of grammatical information. So you can see it shows you the part of speech, the gender, the declension, but it only gives one definition for the word. The example word we chose was pawns. So you can see that it tells you that pawns means bridge. The next dictionary we chose, you can see it's a lot more complicated. And this dictionary gives a lot of citations of authors. It also gives two different meanings for the word pawns. And finally, this is the TLL. This doesn't look like either of the versions of the TLL I've shown you before. That's because the entry for the word pawns in the TLL is about 10 pages long, and I couldn't fit it on this slideshow. We also couldn't fit it in the assignment. What we gave them instead was what is called the semantic hierarchy. So a record of all of the meanings that are logged in the TLL. So you can see that this is 20 meanings. The first dictionary gives us 1, the second dictionary gives us 2, this one gives us nearly 20. There are different dictionaries and you can use them in different ways, and we wanted people to be able to understand that. Here's also an email from my supervisor, just to give you some evidence that, he exists. Here's how we correspond, talk to each other about things. Oh, and I wanted to say the assignment on synonyms does not exist yet. We are currently working on that. But third unit, workplace culture and ethics, is what I wanted to talk about next. First, my personal experiences, what I enjoyed, what I didn't. Writing emails is not fun. I don't like writing emails. Reading the TLL is, I showed you what it looked like. It's a bit of a slog to get through it, but it's rewarding when you finally do understand what you're reading. And writing journal entries somewhere in the middle, talking with my supervisor was a lot more enjoyable because we were developing new content. So we had to come up with different ideas, compare them, talk about what was going to be the most effective. That kind of synthesis I thought was really enjoyable. I also enjoyed creating the actual assignments because, as a student, I'm usually on the receiving end of assignments, and it was interesting to be on the other side and have to think about how I explained things to people, make sure it made sense. It wasn't something I'd experienced before, and it was a really interesting experience to have. The etiquette and culture at the TLL, I noticed that it was very casual, collaborative, low conflict. It's a project rather than an organization or a company. There are no ladders to climb, so there's very little conflict, arguments. People tend to dress not quite professionally. My supervisor wore a lot of plaid shirts and sweaters, and he was in the physical internship, he was in the physical place where the TLL is based. So I did get an impression of how people dressed and how they acted. People are interested in the project for the sake of the project, I think, is the impression that I got. So as long as you're also engaged, everyone's willing to help everyone else out. Next, I was going to talk about workplace diversity, Unit 4 of internship. So how diverse is the TLL? In terms of women, it's very diverse. It is at least 50% female. It might be more. I watched a couple of videos of the workplace that they had posted on their website, and that's the impression I got. I have no real statistics. Generally, the classics are becoming less diverse here. It used to be more of an issue. In terms of ethnic groups, much more of a problem. Almost, if not all white. I will say that the project is based in Germany. It's in Munich, Germany. And according to the CIA World Factbook, the second largest ethnic group in Germany is 1.8% of the population. That might contribute to my observation. It's still problematic that I only saw white people there. So it's something that could be addressed. In terms of educational diversity, not very diverse at all, but I think that's a consequence of the project. You have to be of a certain educational level in a very specific area to even understand how to contribute to the project. I mean, I'm not contributing to the project. I'm operating in a peripheral capacity, but I'm not writing the actual entries. I'd probably have to have 8 more years of education to even be able to contribute to the project. So I think the lack of educational diversity is just a prerequisite of the existence of the project. And finally, networking, who I met there. I really only spoke to 3 people in the entirety of my internship. It was a very small bubble. I didn't talk to or even hear mention of anyone else. So I felt like it would be a little duplicitous to put any more names in here. But I spoke to Dr. Adam Gittner. He was my supervisor. I think in the future, he would have a really good impression of my work ethic and what kinds of things we worked on. I thought we did some pretty unique stuff that most high schoolers don't do. So in terms of things like college recommendations, getting a job in this field later on, that would be a useful thing for him to know about me. Amy Leonard, my Latin teacher, but we spoke in a different capacity over the course of this internship because me and my supervisor were talking to her about how we might implement the assignments we were making into her classroom. So I've been her student before, but as an intern for this project, I think she got a sense of my interest in Latin in general outside the context of her class, which is, I think, a good thing for her to know about me. And finally, Dr. Kathleen Coleman, I emailed her about getting this internship in the first place. So she has my resume, she knows the process I went through to obtain the internship, and I think that's a good thing for her to know about me as well. Finally, wanted to show you my business card. Up there in the upper left-hand corner, you see the logo of the university that hosts the TLL. So it's the Bayerische Akademie der Wissenschaften. And on the back, I have the full name of the project, full name of the university, my address, and my contact information. So that's all. Any questions?
Well, I have a question. I was just wondering, so you said it was based in Germany. Did you run into any language barrier issues for your internship? Because I'm assuming you don't speak German.
Do not speak German. My supervisor is actually from Boston. He lives in Germany now though, but I got the impression that most people there speak English even if they don't. They understand and can speak English even if they don't always speak English when they're at the place.
Would you want to continue this internship like further or even pursue this as like, I don't know, so that professor, it was obviously his career, but would you want to do something like this for your career?
You know, I'm not sure. I will be continuing the internship. Like I said, we haven't finished our synonyms assignment, and we were hoping we could test this stuff out on the AP Latin class next semester. So the internship will probably continue for another month. But past that, I'm really not sure because I think this is interesting, but I think so many other things are interesting. It's just difficult for me to make a prediction right now.
I had a question. What was the area of study for Dr. Gittner and Dr. Coleman? So are they like Latin professors or classical language? You know, what's exactly?
Their title is classics professor. So I think they majored in the classics in college, is my impression, but you can specialize past that. So some classics professors are interested in Roman warfare. Some of them are interested in language, like I'm talking about etymology and that kind of research. You know, culture, sometimes food. So they'll specialize in different things, but generally they're all referred to as classics professors.
Okay, thank you.
Does the realm of classics go beyond the Roman language, Latin?
Mm-hmm. It usually includes Greece and Rome is the umbrella of classics. Sometimes you can get into Egyptian culture, particularly late Egyptian culture, because that's when the Romans and the Greeks interacted with the Egyptians. But you can also branch out a little into Gaul, so modern day France, and into Britain, because the Romans got all the way up there at one point. But generally, it's the Romans, the Greeks, and who they interacted with.
Okay, thank you. Okay, does anybody have any further questions for Carolina?